This entitled mum thinks that she deserves all the food that she wants at her relative's expense, but she's got eyes bigger than her stomach, and for this woman, that's quite an achievement. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. So this took place on one of the biggest, eventful days of my life, my graduation day. No, this did not happen recently, so you can rest assured that she no longer has any hold of me or any ties with me. Pretext. I graduated early but was earning not so much as my entitled adoptive mother. The moment I was getting paychecks and helping out around the house and giving my money away to the family, she would pretend to be sick, so she'd take a week or two off without pay. She would just lie around the house and not do anything. I asked her about this and she told me she was allowed to do so and not needed to work since I was giving her money and earning an income. Okay, here's the story. On my graduation day, it was hot and boring for those who were not going to receive any qualifications or any degree. The relatives and friends who came to attend the ceremony would act as a standby for these graduates to go in and come out. They would be there as a personal staff, I guess, to help out carrying all the things that our graduation gowns could not. It was hot and these graduates were the only people with black gowns. So sun gleaming plus black gowns equals certain people would have passed out for sure. Anyway, that was not the point of the story. So while we were waiting for it to be my faculty's turn to go into the auditorium, my family, my adoptive mother plus father, my grandmother, my aunt, my cousin, the photographer, were complaining that they were hungry, including the photographer. I proposed to them an idea that would pay for everyone's lunch, because they were all there for me. I graduated early so I could work a little, but I was not earning much since I was only 3 months into the job. I would be earning about $500 per month and give the rest of the family about $66. On this day, I was left with $236. Therefore, everyone suggested a cheap restaurant nearby so we wouldn't have to travel far. Or did we have to waste any money? Not my adoptive mother. Obviously, she had a brilliant idea.
Capital took me once to this one exotic restaurant. It has the local food too. Everyone gets to eat anything they like.
I did not object. I couldn't think of a proper place to eat, so whatever she said, plus the heat, I just went whatever with it. So she took us to this Israeli place that I would often go with my friends and my cousin. My family went in and they were weirded out at first, given the prices of the food, but it was okay with me. They were there for me and this at least was the thing I could do as a thank you to them. It might not have been the best idea to eat there, given the prices, but since it was a thank you gesture, I just let them decide what to eat. Once we sat down, the waiter was super familiar with me and came with the menu. Everyone looked through and just ordered one dish per person. That was fine with me. Everyone seemed to order what they liked, and I was pleased with that. Even the photographer said thank you. He was a family friend, so basically I considered him an uncle. Anyway, everyone seemed to be pleased with everything, except my adoptive mother.
Well, this is great and all, but it's an experience. We should order more.
Are you gonna order more and be able to finish them?
Of course I would. It's your day. We should celebrate.
Sure. So she asked the waiter for the menu again. You know, with the snappy fingers. She looked through the menu and ordered most things that were exotic and pricey. The photographer, / uncle, just looked at me and asked if I could afford it. I told him not to worry as long as everything gets eaten. I would be happy regardless. That was a blatant lie. I wanted to hit my adoptive mother with a plate. The orders finally came. They were a bunch of food my other family members wouldn't eat. They usually eat the local food, but this was on my adoptive mother's plate, literally. She had to eat all of them, but of course not. She knew me and my cousin were the only people who liked the exotic food. So, did she finish them? Heck no.
Oh my gosh, I'm so stuffed.
Do you plan to finish the rest?
No, but you can eat the rest, you know.
Yeah, I am full with just my plate. Why did you order more if you knew you wouldn't finish them?
Come on, be the good host. We're here for you. Don't spoil it for everyone.
Are you serious? She knew I couldn't eat the rest because I'd have to be waiting in the auditorium for about 5 hours without bathroom breaks. The uniform I had on was with a belt that had to be on tight, otherwise my skirt would fall off. If I ate a lot, I wouldn't be able to breathe, and she knew all of this but still suggested that I should eat everything up anyway. So I asked the waiter to pack up the food for us. He asked if the food was up to everyone's satisfaction, Everybody else said yes, except my adoptive mother.
Yeah, the food today was not that great. Try harder next time. You're smart enough for someone from your village.
His eyes went livid, I swear. The dude knew me because I often went there, and he would always treat me with kindness. He looked at me and back at her. I had to apologize for this woman's behavior, and he said, "I cannot believe you didn't finish everything, ma'am. No need to be modest. I judge from your size and I'm sure you're still hungry." My cousin heard that and choked on her water. My grandmother heard it and pretended not to. My uncle just giggled. My aunt just looked at the waiter in disbelief. My adoptive father nodded in agreement to the waiter. And my adoptive mother was just in shock. "Hey, congratulations to the new graduate here. I'll give you a discount today," the waiter said, and I was so grateful for that. Not only because 1, the discount saved my butt because it was about $150 for our plates, but he deducted the price down to $90. And 2, the waiter went savage on my adoptive mother, and I could not be any more grateful for that. We left there afterwards and everyone was full. I had more food to take home and she instructed that I carry them since she ordered them for me, but I paid for them. My cousin saw it and told me not to worry. She helped out with the rest. The rest of the day went okay. My entitled adoptive mother complained about anything she could complain about. Everyone else congratulated me once the ceremony was done.
Can we just go home now? My feet hurt. I feel sick. That waiter totally ruined my day.
Then we went home, and she still complained anyway. The end. I feel really bad for people that have these kinds of entitled parents. They just feel embarrassed every time they have to go out with them. Maybe to eat or some sort of celebration, some sort of party. In a sense, it's unpredictable what they might do, but you can always predict they're gonna get themselves into trouble. It was pretty brave of that waiter to say what he said. I think I would have been afraid that I was gonna lose my job or something. I'm surprised we didn't hear the whole, "I'm gonna get you fired for that." Entitled parents love that spiel. This is not the typical outrageous entitled parent story if that's what you're looking for. Today you will get to know a different kind of entitled parent. So the entitled parent of my story is the worst kind of them all. It's the kind you can't get away from because it's my mother. Today we went over to my grand's apartment for lunch. A thing to note is that in my country, it's common to have maids, but my grandparents, and my family until recently, don't have any. This is important for later into that story. My grandmother is very active in the church, so there was an event today, and no one else wanted to go, so I went instead. Before heading to the event, I ordered pizza for the family because no one wanted to cook. The event lasted for about 1.5 hours, mostly just waiting around for the priest to show up and chatting with my grandmother's friends. Once it finished, we packed up and headed back to her place. Since we took so long, everyone else ate already, and it was just me and her left eating at the table. After we finished, she was the only one cleaning. I tried to help, but she insisted I didn't. Meanwhile, my mum was sitting at the sofa, not moving. Mind you, they left a bit of mess as well. Now this is where the no maids comes into play. For a good 9 months, we only had a cleaning lady come on weekends. At first I was the one cleaning the house and the dishes, and we would have the laundry done in the weekends. I soon got tired of this because my mum was a mess. It would come to a point where she would leave plates, cups and utensils in the sink, bedside table, dining table, anywhere she could put them really, all unwashed for days, sometimes weeks. Her laundered clothes would be stacked on chairs and the side of her bed. She would never sweep her room or wipe any of the surfaces. She had dogs that she just left and would let their poop accumulate in the backyard. Mind you, she would never walk the dogs at all, and one of them is a lab that was wildly untrained and out of control. She even bit my dog, but that's a story for another time. And these dogs managed to go from fat and fluffy to skinny little things because she forgot to feed them. Basically, she was operating as if we still had people to pick up after her. Whenever I would lecture her about it, she would say, "Those aren't mine, I didn't use those." Or when she couldn't use that excuse, "Don't worry, I'll get to it." We got into a huge argument because she didn't want to even look for a new maid, and she stated, "Well, we can just clean the house ourselves." The point was, she couldn't even clean after herself. I realized that during the time we didn't have maids, she would spend more and more time at my grandmother's house. All those times my mother didn't come home while we were maidless, this is what she was doing to her. She was leaving her 65-year-old mum to clean by herself while she relaxed at the sofa watching TV. She basically had a free maid to cook and clean after her. This was probably going on for the longest time, and I couldn't fathom how someone could just leave their mother to do all the work. It was one thing to be lazy in your own home, but in someone else's? My grandmother afterwards started folding clothes, so I started helping her out. Meanwhile, my mum is still relaxing on the couch. When it got really late, like 12, my sister wanted to leave as she was the one driving. My mum took forever to get up. My sis got so ticked, she left. So what does my mum do? She then asks my gran for a glass of water when she was literally 5 steps away from the kitchen. After a while, I told my mum to hurry up because Sissy was waiting for her, and it looked to me like she was taking her sweet time. Then she snapped with a, "Yeah, wait, my foot is wet." When she was done, she was still looking around, not caring about how long she was taking. When we finally left the condo 15 minutes later, we went down and had to walk and look for my sis a bit because she had moved the car. When we got in, my mum threw my sissy's bag out of her way so she could sit. My sister's laptop was in the backpack, and of course, my sister is ticked and says, "What the heck? Don't throw my things, my laptop's in there. Hand me my laptop now." Mum is huffing and shoves the bag to my sis. My sister hadn't put the car on neutral, so I tell her to give it to me so I can check it while she drives. After I make sure it's okay, my mum asks for the laptop and she shoves it back into my sister's bag. She's still ticked for no reason. I can tell because of the way the laptop thuds when it's tossed into the bag, and I can hear her zip the bag roughly. She doesn't even apologize and huffs and puffs in the back seat. I proceed to drown her out with rap music. This is the other entitled parent that I think receives little attention and exposure. The kind that believes they don't need to have basic courtesy because we're family, and when you live with someone it's obvious you'll see them at their worst. Her words. It's the kind that chips away at you every day in the small things they do because they can't empathize with anyone but themselves. I guess they've got a really good point. It's really easy to notice the entitled parents that do the really big things. You know, the stuff you see in movies and you're like, they can't really be people like that, can there? Yes, they can. And then there's the other type of entitled person. The one that does it in all the little and subtle ways every single day, and it might just start by not being courteous. Back when I was in primary school, 4th grade, there was this girl, let's call her Sally, who would go to any extent to make my life a living hell. I don't know why she did it because I never gave her a reason. But then again, she had started the minute I stepped into the classroom on my first day. I was new there, by the way. I wasn't the only person she hated though. She hated almost everyone, save for a few of her friends and parents. Now, I had tried to be a friend several times, but she just teased me and pushed me away. I gave up after several tries. She would often make up stories about me and tell them to teachers. Our school works on a policy, didn't see it happen, which was dumb, but that has saved me from detention countless times. Anyways, I had tried my best that year and by 2 months, I had already climbed the popularity ladder. And guess who was at the top of it? That's right, Sally. She knew I would dethrone her one day, so she would do anything in her power to get a good grade on her tests, going as far as bribing the teacher. But that's a story for another day. Tuesday, September 12th, 2009. It was the day of the big test, our first midterm. I worked hard for this so that I can finally prove myself that I wasn't exactly dumb, like I made myself to think. But that never happened. Why? Well, basically, there is this rule at my school which states, no matter what happened, a student has to complete their exam within the allotted 3 hours. While I was writing my exam, I heard Sally ask permission to go fill her bottle. While going back to her seat, she took a detour and walked behind my seat. Next thing I know, Sally spilled water on my paper. That's right, we had almost an hour left to submit, and she spilled water on my gosh darn paper. She had the nerve to say, "Oops, sorry," and go back to her seat like nothing happened. I looked at the teacher, and she shrugged. "I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. You know you'll have to submit the paper within 45 minutes. I'll try to consider this while grading your paper, but I can't promise anything else," my teacher had said. Everyone in the classroom knew I was screwed. What happened next was completely obvious. I waited for the paper to dry, but it didn't. And then I had to submit my paper incomplete. Up till now, I never told my parents about Sally because I knew if I did, my mum would definitely pay my teacher a visit and cause problems, and I didn't want that. But that day, Sally took it too far, and I told my mum everything. The next day, my dad complained to the principal. She called in Sally's dad, and here is how the conversation went. MD is my dad, SD Sally's dad, S is Sally, and P principal. My daughter had told us yesterday that Sally here has been giving her trouble since day one. What she did yesterday was unacceptable. I want you to allow my daughter to retake the test, or anything that will help her grades. I'm sorry, but we can't do that. Once the test is done, no one is allowed to retake it. Not even to do something for extra credits? That we will think about. What about Sally here? Isn't she going to be punished?
Why should my daughter be punished? She didn't do anything wrong.
She spilled water on my daughter's test paper. That's called sabotaging someone.
I'm sorry, did you just say my daughter sabotaged your daughter? She doesn't have a need to do that. She is better at everything than your daughter. That's true. Kat here could never beat me. That's going to be proved from our exam results.
Mrs. P, I saw her spilling it purposefully. You can check the cameras for proof. At the mention of cameras, Sally and her dad both shuddered visibly.
Well, do that some other day because we don't have time right now. Come on, Sally, let's leave.
And that was the end of that. Our principal promised my dad she would look into the matter and look at camera footage, but we knew that wouldn't happen. Later that day, my mum decided to go pay Sally's house a visit. Sally lived very close to us. It was a minute away from us. When we rang her doorbell, Sally's dad opened the door.
Yeah?
Hi, I'm Kat's mum. I want to talk to you about your daughter.
There's nothing to talk about. Leave!
Right then, a voice called out from inside asking us to come in. We walked in and the first thing we noticed was a woman who looked deathly sick. Her head was shaved and she looked like she would drop to the floor at any moment, but she still had a sweet smile on her face. Hey, I'm Dee, Sally's mother. What did you want to talk about, my daughter? My mum hesitated at first. No, tell me whatever it is. And then my mum told her everything. After hearing the whole story, Sally's mum called both her husband and daughter and made them apologize to us. She told us she had a brain tumor, and we talked for a long time. Both the mothers hit it off immediately, and while they were talking, Sally's dad called me.
Hey, I'm sorry for acting this way. It's just that I know Sally is going to lose her mum soon, and I didn't want her to feel like I was a bad parent. So I had to support her no matter what. I know that's not an excuse, but I hope you forgive us.
Of course, that wasn't a good excuse, but I understood. Even at the tender age of 9, I knew losing a mother could potentially turn you into a jerk. Sally then apologized to me, saying the only reason she did all that was to seem tough, because if she didn't, she would have broken down in class almost every day. After that day, we were best of friends. I would always go to her house to visit her and we would hang out all the time. I moved the next year, but we still had contact with each other for months. Then we both got new friends and we drifted apart. In 7th grade, Sally called me to inform me her mum had died that day. I had to comfort her through the phone for an hour. The reason why I'm writing this story is because last week I went to visit her as it was her mum's death anniversary, and I met with Sally and her dad. They were the sweetest. I then realized while most EPs are just plain jerks, some are only entitled because of circumstances. I know the saying don't judge a book by its cover is kind of overplayed, but it definitely seems to fit in this situation. No, their behavior is definitely not excused because of their unfortunate situation, but sometimes you just don't know what people are going through, and it doesn't give them a license to be a jerk. But when you know what they are going through, you can sort of understand why they might be acting the way they are. I definitely don't think this is the case for every entitled parent. In fact, it's probably only for a small minority of them, but it is something that's good to keep in mind. Sometimes when people treat you badly, it's because they're hurting themselves. Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.